On October 6, 1993, in Hallowell, Maine, a young man with a Scandinavian accent, presumably in his 20s, was discovered in the house of Josh and Kelly Kenny in the middle of the night, sitting in the corner of their bedroom. The police were immediately called, and the man was arrested and taken to the station, where he was questioned. The man told them his name was Peter Steele, and he had something horrifying to tell them. What he told them was unbelievable until he was able to prove part of his story by something they found on him, leaving police baffled. This is a story he told the Hallowell Police Department. What I'm about to tell you will be hard for your modern day ears to understand. You will call me crazy, a lunatic, one that should be locked away for good. You'd be wise to listen and heed my words, as there are many others like me, and always will be. You see, people just don't disappear. There's always somewhere they go. That somewhere is somewhere very dark. I was born on the outskirts of Utrecht, Netherlands in 1563, but it's what happened in 1587 when I was 24 years old that my life took a devastating turn. Our small village had been under the rule of the Spanish for decades. They were ruthless to our people at times. I remember at a very young age my father telling me to steer clear of the Spanish soldiers if possible, don't talk to them, and avoid eye contact. Whenever I saw them, I'd keep my head down and carry on about my business. This went on for years without any incidents to my 3 siblings and parents, that is, until that devastating day on May 27th, 1587, the worst day of my life. I was the youngest, but I had a brother and 2 older sisters who were very beautiful. It was evening and we were sitting around the table about to eat when my eldest sister came frantically running inside. She was crying hysterically. Her clothes were ripped and she was bleeding from her nose. My father jumped up from the table asking her what had happened. She said one of the soldiers tried raping her, but she was able to fend him off, accidentally killing him. No sooner had she said that, a group of soldiers came barging into our home with swords drawn. Without hesitation, my father attacked them. He was immediately struck down and killed. My first instinct was to fight them, but my mother was quick, grabbing my arm as she whispered in my ear not to do anything. I had to muster all the strength I had in me not to fight them as I watched my father die right before my eyes. One of the soldiers then asked, "What do we do with the rest of them?" "Kill them. We don't need one of them trying to exact revenge on us," replied another soldier. Without thinking, I lunged at them but was quickly met with the end of their swords as I fell to the ground. As I laid there on the ground, I watched the rest of my family get brutally hacked to death. The next thing I remember was waking up somewhere, and it was pitch black. When I sat up, I heard a man's raspy voice behind me say, "Hello, Peter." "Who are you?" I asked. "I have no name," he replied. "Where am I?" I asked. "You're in the realm, a place between your world and somewhere very dark," he responded. "Why am I here?" I asked. "Would you like to avenge your family?" he responded. "Yes, of course I would," I replied. "Good, you will be given the chance, but it comes with a price," he said. "What price is that?" I asked. "You will be immortal and you will do our bidding. There are things always waiting to enter your existence to take what they want, and you will let them," he replied. "Take what?" I asked. "The flesh and souls of the living," he replied. I immediately agreed, as I was overcome with rage because of what happened to my family. I didn't give any thought as to what I was truly agreeing to until it was too late. The second I agreed, I was standing in a room with a man fast asleep in his bed. It took me some time to realize it was one of the soldiers who'd killed my family. I was about to walk over and strangle him when I felt a tap on my shoulder as something whispered in my ear, "May I enter?" I fumbled to find the words, but then remembered what the man's voice said about letting them enter our existence. I stepped aside and said, "You may." It's hard to describe what it was, and I still have a hard time putting what they look like into words. Think of the most dreadful thing you can imagine, and you'll be close. I then watched with a smirk on my face as a soldier was torn apart as he screamed out in pain. This went on one after another until all the soldiers that had killed my family were dead. Once they'd been killed, the things dragged their bodies, or what was left of them, back into the realm, leaving no trace behind, not even a speck of blood. After all the soldiers had been killed, I was put into what I call the Dusk. the middle ground between this world and the realm. When a thing wants to enter our world, they must come to someone like me and ask permission. If I had known the price I was going to pay, I would have never agreed to it. During the day, I roam the world as a common but immortal man, and at night I fulfill my never-ending agreement. Unfortunately, I remember every detail the first time I let one of those things enter our world that was not for revenge. I'm not sure where I was at when I appeared in that bedroom, but it was not my home country, as I'm always somewhere different each day and night. As I stood there looking at who was sleeping peacefully in the bed in front of me, I almost yelled aloud, "No, no, no!" There in front of me was a small girl, no more than 5 or 6 years old. I immediately started thinking of ways to get out of there, but realized there were none. I then felt the dreaded tap on my shoulder and heard, "May I enter?" I hesitated for a long time, not wanting to acknowledge it. The thing, however, kept tapping me, asking, "May I enter?" until I finally stepped aside and said, "You may," as I bowed my head in shame. The thing walked over to the child, picking her up by her hair. As the child woke, she looked straight into my eyes with a look of dread I shall always remember. Before she could scream, the thing covered her mouth with its gruesome-looking hand, then immediately snapped her neck. The sound of her neck snapping haunts me every day. The thing then grabbed the little girl by her ankle, holding her upside down like a piece of meat as it walked back into the realm. It's been going on like this for centuries, but the victim is always different. Could be an old man or a baby. Sometimes I'll appear in the bedroom of the victim, but sometimes it'll be a random place, but always when it's dark. Something interesting happened in 1887, though. I appeared one night in a large room that looked like it was fit for royalty. As I made my way to the bed, I was surprised to see the current king of the Netherlands, William III, laying there. No sooner had I realized this, he sat up in bed, looked at me and said, "You're one of those that does their bidding for the realm, aren't you?" I was a bit taken aback as I stumbled to find the words. "Yes, I am. How might you know that, Your Majesty?" "There's no way you could have entered my room from the outside. The elites of the world know about the realm and have worked out a form of protection from it," he replied. I stood there for a while, fully expecting to be tapped on the shoulder, but it never happened. I spent the rest of the night talking to William III about many things. He asked questions about the realm and everything I'd done and seen over the last 300 years. He seemed very fascinated by it all. We even spent the following day conversing as well, until evening came and I was sent somewhere else. I'd say we became friends that day. Aside from the soldiers and the small girl the things killed, there's only one other night that sticks out in my mind out of the hundreds I've witnessed. This being the most disturbing and a turning point for me. The child killings are the hardest to watch, and I feel a piece of my soul is taken from me each time. The most disturbing night took place in the fall, in Woodburn, Oregon, in the year 1983. As I appeared in the bedroom, I quickly saw a girl sleeping who was around 12 to 13 years old. The first thought that came to my mind was she looked just like my eldest sister. Without thinking, I walked over to her bed, put my hand on her mouth and said, "Do not scream. I mean you no harm. You must leave your room now and run as far away from your house as possible, and do not come back till morning." She laid there staring at me, her eyes wide open with a look of terror on her face. I knew if I removed my hand she'd scream, so I kept it there. I also knew I didn't have much time before one of the things came. Sometimes it's a few minutes, sometimes it's an hour. I never know. "Do you understand me? I'm trying to help you. You must listen to me. Do not scream, get up, and just run," I said. As I slowly removed my hand, she did what I was dreading she'd do. She screamed out for help as loud as she could. I lowered my head in sadness as I closed my eyes, knowing what was going to happen next. I walked over to the corner of the room and waited for everything to unfold. It didn't take long for the girl's family to come into the room as 4 people came rushing in, 2 little boys along with both parents. With all the commotion, I now knew it was only seconds before I felt the dreaded tap on my shoulder, and I was right. I closed my eyes as the thing walked past me. "What in the hell is that?" asked the father in horror. I could hear them scrambling to get out of the room as the thing approached. It wasn't long before I heard their horrific shrieking as the thing tore them apart. One of the boys yelled out, "Stop hurting my family!" His screams were quickly cut off. Those words from his little voice still echo in my mind to this day. It went on for several minutes, then there was silence. One regret I have was opening my eyes to see the carnage. It was the worst I'd ever seen. Blood and pieces of them were everywhere. I couldn't tell who was who. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I thought about my own family and how this beautiful family was slaughtered for no reason. After that, I tried killing myself many times, but no matter what I did, I would always come back in the evening to a new place and it would start all over again. I eventually stopped trying and continued on as I'd done for centuries, until last night, that is. I decided I'd had enough of being suspended in dusk, as I call it. When the thing came and asked for permission to enter, I said, "You may not." The thing turned and went back to the realm. I then felt as though my soul was taken from my body and something had drastically changed inside me. I also knew I'd broken the agreement and would not only become a mortal man, but when I die, I will become one of the things I've dreaded for so long. I wondered for a very long time what would happen if I refused the entry of one of them. Now I know. Peter was questioned by 2 different psychiatrists and found to be sane. The police tried linking him to the disappearance of the family in Woodburn, Oregon in 1983, but ultimately could not charge him with anything. When the Hallowell police arrested and searched Peter, the only thing they found in one of his pockets was an old photograph of Peter standing next to William III, the former king of the Netherlands. He said it was taken on the day he'd spent with the king. It was authenticated by an expert and found to be legitimate. Several months later, Peter was released from jail and was never seen again. The old photograph was given back to him upon his release. 5 retired officers from the Hallowell department can verify its existence. For more scary horror stories, please subscribe.